Alright, so hello. My name is Carl. I am the head of content for MPULL and League Digital. And today I'm going to be walking you through a journey through space, discovering how to write and understand the brief process. And you can see that's the space journey right there. Just to kick off, there's some details for me. If you'd like to get in touch, if anything I say in this training session offends you or you like anything, feel free to drop me an email if you have any questions. There are my details. I'm usually quite good on emails, so feel free to drop me a line. Moving right ahead, that was the sort of introduction. Top quality briefs, all you need to know. If those are the briefs you're after, you're in the wrong place, so I suggest you look elsewhere. So this is what our briefing document at MPULL and League looks like, specifically for blog briefs. So when we are taking a brief from a client, we're trying to understand what we're supposed to be writing about and how that aligns with the broader digital strategy. And so we have a Google Doc or a Word doc that has this pasted into it. And as you can see there, it has the date, the persona that we're writing for, the stage of the funnel. So is it awareness content? Is it consideration content? Or is it decision stage content? Next is the campaign that the blog is associated to. So we may be running a campaign based around political speech, or we may be running a campaign focused on a marketing persona that has to do with a specific type of software. Next is the campaign that the blog is associated to. So we may, for instance, be running a campaign focused at a marketing persona and aimed at pushing a specific type of software that makes their job easier, for example. Next is the article type. So when we're talking about blog articles, there are a lot of different styles of article that a writer can write. Anything from a listicle to a case study type blog to things you should and shouldn't do. There are hows and whys. A whole lot of different types of articles. Obviously, the article that we choose to write is going to be the one that best allows us to put the appropriate message across. Next is the keyword, something that you probably have heard a lot about in reference to SEO, search engine optimization. So we try to get the primary keyword into the text of the article between 3 and 5 times. Obviously 5 times if you can, but oftentimes aesthetics dictates that 5 times is ridiculous, and anyone who reads that is going to know that you're trying to smuggle keywords into the body of your text. So we try to aim at a minimum of 3 times of including that primary keyword. Next would be the secondary keywords. So typically those are bottom of funnel keywords or more focused towards products. And they tend to appear once or twice in the blog, usually towards the end. And they tend to be linked to a product page or to a FAQ page or a page where people are more likely to buy. Next, obviously, the suggested title. This can be anything. We try to stay away from the typical clickbait, like you'll never guess what happened next, or including sort of celebrities and titles, that type of thing. And we tend to aim it to sort of towards the personas that we're writing for, and just try to make it catchy and interesting for them. Next, and this is probably the place that anyone developing a brief should start. The main points the blog should cover and the takeout. So if you're going to write a blog and you have no idea what you want people to do after they read that blog, it's not going to be a very effective blog. So a good place to start when you're developing blog briefs as a strategist is to start with, what do I actually want this blog to say? And how should it say that? Should it include point 1 before point 2? And then move on to point 3, or is point 3 more important? Should we give that sort of center stage? And then obviously, what do we want the reader to do after this? What should they take away from that reading experience? So really to give a lot of consideration to what you actually want the blog to say, and then what you want the reader to do after that are really important. And that's obviously going to help the writer or the crafter of the actual article really be effective in what they're doing. Next is the product tie-in. Typically, that can be linked to, any product, I suppose, on the website. It's not really going to appear in blogs, typically anyway. Blogs sort of at the top or awareness stage of the funnel, because people aren't ready to buy. And at most, what you might see there is something which actually appears a little bit further down the blog brief, which is the call to action at the bottom of the blog. Typically, there may be a call to action which links to a product or asks the reader to do something, but in the actual body of the text, there may not be a tie into a particular product. In fact, most of the time, in sort of the top of the funnel awareness and even some of the consideration content that we write, we're not going to mention products because, like I said, people aren't ready to buy. Next, the URL link to the product. That is, if we are linking to a product, obviously that needs to be supplied so that the writer can put that into the brief, into the blog. And yeah, additional comments, anything else that the person who wants the blog written would like to include in that blog, any other sort of references, anything that the writer should be looking at, these type of things. So really just a collection of information that helps the person writing the blog do a really effective job. So when you're writing a blog, and often when you're developing the strategy of which one of blogs or a series of blogs forms a part, you've got to remember that you are writing or you are developing a strategy around a buyer's journey, and that is, as defined by HubSpot, an active research process a potential buyer goes through leading up to a purchase. So typically we're going to be creating content at all stages of that buyer's journey. A lot more content is going to be based around the awareness stage because people will come into your sort of buying funnel or into their buyer's journey from different angles and different places. A little bit, actually quite a lot less content will be produced at the consideration stage, but there's still going to be more content produced there than there will at the decision stage, because by the time someone's ready to buy, they really just want quite a limited amount of information: pricing, where they can get the product, how long it's going to take the product to get to them, these types of things. So you can't really craft a lot of really engaging content at the decision stage. That typically tends to happen more at the awareness and consideration stages of the buying journey. Something else to keep in mind, and we mentioned this when we looked at what was actually in a briefing document, was that you're actually writing for a persona. You're writing for a person, right? And the personas that we develop here are sort of archetypes for the types of people that you are writing for. So if we look a bit closer into this persona doc, you can see there that's architect Arthur. He's 40 years old. He wants to design amazing spaces and get recognition for his creativity. It's quite egoistic, apparently. But there you see sort of what he does, what his ambitions are, what he worries about, how he makes decisions. There's actually a bit more information than that in the persona doc, but I took the screenshot just so that you can see that we go into quite a lot of detail about the people that we're writing for, because that's the only real way to generate a sense of empathy and really to understand what it is they are after and what problems of theirs we can actually help them solve. And I suppose that sort of speaks to the whole inbound methodology, because what you're actually trying to do when you develop effective content in terms of content marketing is to draw people into your world to help them solve the problems that they have, right? We're not out there shouting at people, asking them to buy stuff they don't need, putting up fancy billboards. People are going to be finding this information, and they're only really going to progress down that buyer's journey and down the funnel if they're finding value in what they're reading. So for us to produce that value means that we need to understand and know a lot about the people that we're writing for. So the main points, and I did mention when we were discussing sort of the elements of the blog brief, that the main points are obviously really, really important. Because if you want a blog written that's going to support your content marketing efforts, you really need to have valuable information in there. There needs to be a value transfer between yourself or your client and the reader. So you've got to make sure that you include the right stuff. So when researching and writing a blog, ask yourself typically the following questions. Does this support the aims of the campaign and the stage of the buyer journey? Right? So if you're really keen to write a blog about what Kim Kardashian did yesterday because it's topical and it might get a lot of shares, right? It's probably not a good idea if you're trying to sell predictive analytics to the chief technical officer of a enterprise level company. So you really need to see who's the campaign aimed at, what are we actually trying to do with the campaign, right? And what stage of the buyer journey am I writing for here? You know, if you're looking to help people make a decision, you know, writing more flowery top of funnel awareness type content isn't going to be correct. Second question there, does this speak to and solve my persona's pain points and problems, right? Again, what Kim Kardashian did yesterday or what she's wearing today might be really interesting to millions and millions of people, and I have no idea why that is, but that's not going to address the pain points or the problems of your particular persona, right? You're not adding value. So talking about Kim Kardashian might generate a lot of vanity metrics, but you're not going to be adding value to persona, and he or she isn't going to buy your client's product. Third question, will my persona find the subject matter relevant and engaging? Right, there may be personas in business-to-business marketing that find what Kim Kardashian did yesterday relevant and engaging. My feeling is the content that you produce for people like that is going to have to be geared towards their industry. It's really going to have to add value to their understanding of their industry and really address their problems. So you're going to have to design your content production with that in mind. Number 4 is, am I empowering my persona to make an informed decision and to take further action? So firstly, am I providing the right information that helps them progress down that buyer journey? And secondly, am I prompting them, or at least allowing them, to take further action to progress further down that buying journey? So do I have the right calls to action? Am I prompting my persona in the correct manner? If you're being too forceful, the person's going to feel like they're being sold to, and they're going to shy away from reading further things on your website. So you have to get that. It's quite a fine science, and you have to get that right. You don't want to push too hard, but you do need to encourage them to take the next step. Number 5, does everything I'm discussing fit together coherently to support my message? So you can't have a blog that's aimed at the chief technical officer and purports to tell him, you know, new things about new software, and then jump all over the place and talk about, you know, games, the newest sort of Nintendo game, and then the newest type of printing software, and then the newest type of software which may help him record a training video. You're going to have to keep it very tight, very coherent, and address a pain point and a consideration. So we move then to the super important takeout, and I did mention this before, because it is super important that whoever's reading your blog takes something away from it, right? Is able to take something out of the time and take something away from, and take something from the time they have invested in reading your blog. So even though we're not talking about food, never write a blog on an empty stomach, right? Stands to reason. The takeout will tell you what people should take away from your blog. This message should be closely aligned to your campaign and the funnel stage. The takeout also tells you where to focus your research and what points to include so that you can logically structure what you are saying in your blog. All right, so start with that central idea. What do I want my reader to take away from this? That's going to inform the types of points you need to include under sort of that main points heading, and that's going to tell you what you need to write there. So starting with the takeout is really important. A quick note on keywords and search engine optimization. And I've got there, how do the primary and secondary keywords relate? Well, I might have mentioned this before. The primary keyword must be in the title, right? So you need to get creative with that, right? There's no point putting in a primary keyword and it's standing out looking like a primary keyword. You need to hide that primary keyword in something really clever so that it doesn't look like a primary keyword. It should also be, as I mentioned before, in the text 3 to 5 times. The secondary keyword, as I mentioned before, once or twice in the copy. Just a quick note there, I know I mentioned it before as well, but the secondary keyword will always link to a product page or resources page that is designed to convert people who are ready to buy. And linking like that also obviously promotes SEO. And then we have the product tie-in, the URL link, and the calls to actions, which again, I mentioned previously. So when you link to a product, it's very much a bottom of funnel tactic, because what people are reading is generally at that stage of the funnel going to prompt them to buy. So you wouldn't link to a product, as I've said before, from awareness or consideration, top and middle of the funnel stage content. That said, if linking to a product is relevant, do it. Linking internally, as I said there, teaches search engines which pages are the most important on a website and helps to funnel traffic to those pages. Your CTA or call to action buttons should appear under every blog, and the wording of the blog should encourage the reader to use those buttons. So really all a call to action is doing is reinforcing the action that you would like your reader to take. Then I've got some blogging tips there for beginner bloggers. Really importantly is the use of subheadings. This breaks up the text creatively and in conjunction with like interesting formatting really serves to highlight important points and really enable the reading experience and make it better. What we found as well is that much more sort of conversational English is a lot better than writing formally or stiffly. You really want your readers to feel like they're engaging in a conversation or at least an information transfer. And then thirdly, keep the entire experience in mind. If linking to a good YouTube video will enhance the experience, you should do it. If you find a good image, you should use it. So really it's not just about the writing itself, the flow thereof and the points and the takeout, which are all important, but also the entire experience, the entire information transfer experience. If you can have something that augments that, put it in. And then lastly, think conversion at all times. Try and understand what will encourage the reader to take the next step in the buyer journey. And that is pretty much the brief creation and a little bit on the blog writing process. If you have any questions or want to have a chat about anything, please get a hold of me. Cheers.